Welcome to the Board of Health meeting of November 15th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for a scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16th, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until April 1st, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote for public participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Conference ID is 513-405-847#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Now I'll turn the meeting over to Chairman Beckley.
Thank you, Judy. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meeting law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. We have a variety of issues on the agenda tonight, so let's get started with the first one. This is a variance hearing from the real estate inspection regulations for Joseph and Tiffany Ambrosino, Sean Ritchie, LLC. The address is 4 Pondview Lane. The Board of Health members got correspondence in their packets. 14, what'd I say? 14 Pondview Lane. And Judy, do you want to kind of bring us in a brief summary of how we got here?
Sure. This property is being transferred, and it's being served by a cesspool. In the process of the transfer, the potential buyer called me, and we discovered that it had transferred a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that at the time they did not upgrade the cesspool, which is a requirement of our real estate inspection regs. So I sent a order to the current owner that it needed to be upgraded. In the meantime, they have a buyer who would like to do renovations at the property, and also it is in an area of sewering that is going to start construction in about 2 years. So the buyer of the property is requesting permission to continue with the use of the cesspool for the real estate transfer so that they can use the property and complete their house renovations and sewer connection plans over the next several years. And he's requesting a 3-year extension, and in your packet you have a letter from him. And I believe we have the real estate agent and the prospective buyer. I don't know if either of them wants to say anything.
I'm happy to say something about it.
Joe, you can go up to the, yeah.
Judy pretty much summed it up. We're scheduled to close on Wednesday. We have a cottage that we're somewhere between renovating and building on the lot, and caught in the situation of building a new septic system only to hook up the town sewer as soon as the spring of 2023, as we heard they were scheduled to begin. The street's been marked, so our hope is to continue to use the cesspool until we're able to hook up the town sewer directly. And we had J.W. Dubus there to inspect the cesspool, and they found it to be in good enough condition to get us to that point to connect the town sewer. So that's our hope. I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Judy, the requirement that we have in town that a house can't transfer if it has a cesspool without upgrading, there's a reason for that, right?
The requirement was put in many years ago so that we would get cesspools to upgrade to Title V systems and not be passed along as is. That was basically the reason for it. Now we have, the option for sewer, which makes a difference and is probably an even better solution than putting in a new septic system. So, but yeah, that is the requirement according to our real estate inspection regs.
And then I guess my question is how much time is too much time to defer on a required upgrade? One of the thoughts I had, and you can comment on this if you want, is there any logic to upgrading the existing cesspool simply by adding a septic tank between the house and the existing seepage pit? That would not be that expensive, and it would upgrade the quality of the effluent going to the groundwater, I would assume. Or is this just nothing to worry about, so long as the existing cesspool continues to function okay? So I don't know what other board members think about this. Then I had another question, is the beginning of the construction in the spring of 2023, how many months generally does it take to install a sewer line of this type? I mean, is it going to be another year before it's done, or
Yeah,
a few months? I mean, what are we looking at generally?
And they're going to start construction in that area, so it could be another year and a half to 2 years before we even get to a point where someone could connect.
Or
So,
it could be 2025.
yeah,
It's
it's hard to tell.
2021 now. I mean, we could be theoretically pushing this out 4 years. And I don't know. This is a little gray to me. What do other board members think?
I think it's a stretch.
You got to hit your button.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Say it again, Ed.
Yeah, I think it's a stretch here. This is a pretty long wait to get something.
Yeah.
I don't think we have had this type of a thing.
And
I've been
I
here.
don't want to do one of these creeping precedent
Yeah.
things, where we keep going a little longer and a little longer. Yes.
I fully agree with what you're saying right now. Absolutely. And maybe it would help if I explain that our intention is to start building as soon as possible, meaning this house would not be used. My hope right now is just the ongoing process of having the builder lined up and the architect, which we already do for the property, that we could be ready to build on this lot this time next year. The advice I was given was to apply for the 3-year variance just because of the time to hook up the town sewer. And then once if we start building in the 12 to 14 months, we're at least a year of that. And the thought was, by the time we're up and running, we're connecting to town sewer as opposed to something else, compared to putting in a septic only just to abandon it in less than a year.
So Joe, are you saying that this is going to be a tear down rebuild?
Again, little gray area. There's an existing home that is on the edge. We're not exactly sure if it's historical or not. Our intention is to move the existing structure on the property and keep it there, and then build in the location where the house is. I know I'm starting to muddy this up in a big way for you guys, but if we stay specific to the sewer system and the septic and the cesspool, the idea is we'd be building and then connecting to town sewer. And whether that be the existing structure still as part of the additional building on the property, then yeah.
I'm a little confused or concerned about what happened in 2020. The house was transferred illegally in 2020 without a proper septic system?
It was transferred from the owner to, I believe, a neighbor who purchased it to add to her own property. And
Right,
it
but
was
that would have
done.
required an upgrade to a Title V.
would have by our
And that wasn't done.
It was not
So
done.
this is a problem right here, right now,
Right.
that was done illegally. And
Right.
that was more than a year ago. So now we're more than a year with an illegal septic system, and we're talking about going another 2, 3, 4, who knows?
The property has been
Because saying
vacant.
that they're going to start construction in the spring of '23 means absolutely nothing. I mean, we know the way things are going here. It takes, that they could put the pipe in the street, and it could take years before they actually start to allow people to hook up to it and use it. So this is a problem, that we start off with a system that was transferred without proper
Right.
sewage. And now we're talking about going another, so we're already maybe a year and a half, and now we're talking about going another 3 years without proper sewer, which disturbs me.
I guess if I get what Joe is suggesting, that we as the board shouldn't worry about an illegal cesspool being used for a long time, because things are going to be phasing in between now and the connection. I guess one of my questions is, do you plan on using the house between now and next year when you would begin to do the renovation?
I think I'd like the ability to use the house. It's a small cottage with a cesspool that has been functioning for years. It was inspected by Dubus. And yeah, I'd love the ability to use the cottage for this next year before we break ground. Yeah.
Judy had made the recommendation about pumping the cesspool. How effective is that, and how often can it, should it be done? Is once a year adequate to make it completely as safe as a Title V system, or should you do it more often than that?
I think if it's something that's just going to be used in the summer, pumping it annually is enough. I don't see that there's any indication that this cesspool is sitting in or near groundwater, so the system will work, it will work well. There's soil below it that will cleanse the effluent.
Do we know how old the cesspool is?
It probably dates back to the 60s,
Okay.
maybe the 70s. I'm looking here.
Noble.
But just to amplify what Dick said, so this house is still owned by the person who, more than a year ago, didn't upgrade the septic system when they were supposed to. The house is still owned by that person.
Technically, but they're closing.
They're closing soon, but it's still actually
Wednesday.
owned by the person who didn't upgrade.
Right.
So I guess my first thought is, why as a board should we let this person, why should this person be allowed to not upgrade when they were supposed to and just pass it on to somebody else? It seems like the owner's really responsible. If it was determined that there should be a septic system now, that really should be the current owner, not the new owner. If that was our determination, I'm saying. So I'm kind of back
Right.
there.
Right.
But it is going to be, there'll be a house on it being used by the cesspool with perhaps 4 years hooked up to sewer. So I haven't been on the board that long, but that's a sort of a new precedent in length as far as I.
Is there a middle ground that we could explore? I have no idea whether it could make any sense, but if the owner was going to be using the house minimally, right, at the same time the Board of Health was reluctant to extend the use, could we put in a tank, a holding tank, that's just pumped once a year or twice a year, depending on how many. You put 1,000-gallon tank, you could flush the toilet, you could take showers, and you don't have to pump that tank unless and until it's filled. Does that make any sense?
If you're talking about a tight tank, I don't think that's really a great idea.
No? Okay.
Because they need to usually Title V doesn't allow tight tanks unless there's, extenuating circumstances. I mean, you could possibly put a tank in before the cesspool and have an overflow to the cesspool that would alleviate some of the pressure on the cesspool by having only liquid going into the cesspool, and you'd have a better quality effluent going into the groundwater. But I'm not sure that there's room there. It looks, it's a pretty small lot. My other question would be, if he's only going to use this for a year and then tear it down and rebuild, that cesspool isn't, it's probably right in the area where he's going to be building the new
Yeah,
house.
it's gonzo.
So, because it's kind of.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It'll be gone, the whole, and when we start, as soon as we break ground, it's in the area.
Okay, so you're
where-
saying then, what I'm hearing is, there's no way this cesspool is going to be in use, except between now and when you
Break ground.
ground.
ground, because it is in the footprint of what's going to happen.
Right.
Now the question is the board comfortable extending the use of that cesspool from now up until when the buyer breaks ground? So that would then be,
We could give him a year and then revisit it in a year if he haven't broken ground, and then we could say, okay, what's the situation? How, we would have a lot more information. by
Intend to
then.
break ground, did you say?
I hope to break ground this time next year. I've been told 12 to 14 months will be the process. And I know it's best to break ground this time of year from a construction standpoint and be buttoned up on the other side of the winter.
So that would mean that if the sewer doesn't come for 2 years after they break ground, they won't be able to use that house at all for 2 years.
right. It would put them in the situation of, once they start construction of the new home, that they're not going to have any sewage access until the day comes that they connect to the town sewer.
And if-
Didn't you,
Because they can't go back and use the cesspool, because it'll be under the footprint of the new home.
but didn't he say they were moving the existing structure?
Yeah.
So when they move that, are they planning on using that?
There's two
While they
structures,
do
I think.
construction?
If the plan goes as moving the existing structure, on that day, we would be abandoning the cesspool and not using it again.
And when do you expect that to happen?
Again, we're living in a world where months become double that, but 12 to 14 months.
So, but I think the idea of extending it a year and then revisit the plan and see if it's really happening
Because
the
then
way
we're not.
it's been
We're
presented.
not looking at setting a precedent of allowing a non-compliant cesspool to be used for 4 years. I mean, I have no comfort with that.
Right, because we're frequently telling people they have to put in an alternative system or whatever, even though the sewer's not going to be there for 3 years, it's going to be there within about 3 years, but we're continually passing these variances and making people put in alternative systems.
That's because they want a +1 on the bedroom, too.
Yeah.
They have to, and there's precedent, if they commit to that expensive an upgrade, they do not have to connect to the town sewer for a certain number of years if they don't want to. So, Ron?
You know what bothers me now? This person that's selling the property is the one that didn't do what they were supposed to
Right.
do. And now they're going to get right out of that easy by putting it all on this fellow right here. And there's nothing the town could have done or do, or was it just,
there was no way for us to know that the property transferred because it was between neighbors. It was probably a cash sale,
did it have to be legally,
It was recorded.
But I'm sure it was recorded, but I don't,
do we pick up anything if it gets recorded?
no. We don't see any of
don't
that.
have-
Pass
Notify
property
the
without
town.
anything.
Yeah, I don't have a way of seeing those unless I was reviewing all the, transfers of properties in town. But, this is how we tend to pick up on these things. These things, one way or another, we find out about them, it may be 2 years later, but that's when Joe called me and we had a long discussion about this, and we found out that this was going to be an issue for the transfer. And he was doing it the right way by asking to come to the board to transfer. I agree, the original owner, got away with a couple of years without doing, but I don't think the property was being used over that 2-year period.
They still must have known what our real estate transfer thing said, what they had to do.
I don't know. They didn't have a realtor, or I don't
And
believe.
someone can get by with that? I mean, we worked real hard putting that real estate transfer thing in, and it's just hard for me to believe that
I
someone
would think
can,
there'd be a mechanism of.
yeah, they can sell a house to someone else
Approval.
and not have to, I mean, I
That's a
think
side issue. That's a
Right.
broader
that's what's
policy
bothering me,
issue
yeah, that
for us
somebody.
right now. I guess
It's something somebody did something that, whether they knew it was illegal or whatever, but
it
now
wasn't
this fellow's
caught.
paying
It
the.
wasn't caught and
Yeah.
focused on.
Yeah.
Noble.
But the new owner is not, if we do what we're doing, the new owner is not going to have to put in a septic for this previous owner. It just, that cost won't be there, so maybe there was
Now,
a
if
mistake in
we-
the system, but
That's between them.
If we decided that we wanted to upgrade the treatment of the cesspool effluent through the addition of a septic tank, it could fall upon the seller to bear that cost. I mean, I don't know, I mean, that would.
I don't think
that would-
that would happen.
Well, yeah, I don't know either.
Well, they would have to reimburse the buyer.
Yeah, the buyer would have to say, the Board of Health is requiring me to install a tank. This is your responsibility, not mine. But, I don't want to get into that, we have no, I guess the question is, does this board have a comfort level extending the use of the existing cesspool for no longer than 1 year from now without a return visit? So that we are
That's more
putting,
to my liking.
we're putting a cap on how much we're extending the use
Right.
of it. And then we could also build in a requirement that has the cesspool been pumped recently? It was.
Yeah, we just had
Okay.
Dubas found that the liquid inside it right now is 8 to 10 inches high.
Okay.
And that the staining goes up to 2 to 3 feet
So
when
that-
it's in full service, and
Right.
so from that standpoint, it's in good shape.
Okay.
It's not on the verge of
It's
overflowing.
not stressing.
No, not at all.
Because nobody's been in the house.
Minimal,
Okay.
very minimal.
And just one other question for Judy. So the frequency of pumping of the cesspool to be, say, 1 year, I mean, he'll be back before a year, but do we ever do shorter time periods?
We
or
could,
are there
yeah, I
other
mean, we could
criteria?
say every 6 months, yeah. I don't know how much use the house is going to get in the next
Has
6
it
months.
ever been pumped before with I'm not familiar enough with how the cesspool works.
A year.
I don't believe you pump them, do you?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they're forgotten about, and they're completely neglected, and you get
Yeah.
away with that, too.
A year sounds like a sufficient time, Judy?
I believe it would be.
Okay.
Okay. So, are we comfortable with a motion to approve this up to 12 months with a requirement that it be pumped in 12 months?
Yeah.
And then with the understanding that if he hasn't initiated the construction, and if the cesspool has not been taken out of service, that he has to come back?
Then he just has to come back, I think.
Yes.
Come back in a year, just review.
I just have one quick question. The difference between pumping a system like that and inspecting it, I'm wondering if Dubas were to inspect it again this year and we found that it was at 8 to 10 inches high and no threat of anything, would that be sufficient? Would an inspection be an idea?
nothing to pump.
Yes.
nothing to pump.
open it and say it's in good shape.
I think that's reasonable.
I'm happy to pay to
Either
have it
pumping-
inspected again and find the same.
Pumping or evidence of an updated inspection affirming that there is no need to pump.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused now. The present owner is not going to have to do anything, just.
Not under the thing we're thinking of doing now, the
Because
motion.
you're not going to do anything to the cesspool
No.
that he'd be, okay.
And I would like to stipulate that if the plan of the new house were to change in such a way that the cesspool isn't removed, then the cesspool can't be used. after construction begins on that house.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, if you could build the house in such a way that you don't have to remove the cesspool, that doesn't give you another 2.5 years to use that
Okay.
cesspool.
Yeah, once the existing home is
Who wants to
moved.
make, who wants to make a good motion that captures that? Noble?
Well, I'd make a motion that we accept the variance to allow the cesspool to be used with the stipulation that the prospective owner is back before the board in a year for an update to see if the cesspool in the current house is demolished and the cesspool's not being used. And that what would you like to say about an inspection?
That the cesspool either be pumped or re-inspected,
In 1 year?
yeah,
Okay,
in
that
1
the-
year.
And that the cesspool be inspected and/or pumped, if necessary, in 1 year.
And that the existing cesspool will be abandoned,
And then when the construction of the new house is initiated.
right.
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 When he
You got
returns-
that,
when
Diane?
when the owner returns in a year, that the cesspool will have been abandoned if the house is demolished.
Okay.
Well, move. He said he's moving.
The cesspool will no longer be used at a year when the house construction starts.
No intention of using that cesspool, I can tell you right
Okay.
now.
All right.
Then
Once
so
we begin construction.
1 year.
you know.
do I get a second?
Second.
Second from Ed. Any further discussion by anybody? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, good night.
Good, thank you. Okay. I hope the rest are easier.
Well, 1 year is okay.
Yeah, no, no.
All right, gentlemen and ladies, let's go to item number 2 on the agenda, which is a variance hearing from real estate inspection regulation for Scott and Shane Masacci at 150 Skyway.
So Shane is on the computer. I got confused. I was thinking she was here for the last one as well. But she's the owner of 150 Skyway and is selling the property, and unfortunately, the system failed the inspection when she went to get the inspection done. And it is imminently to be connected to town sewer. So I can let Shane tell what she discussed with Dr. Duncanson about that.
Good
Shane,
afternoon. Hi, good afternoon.
good afternoon.
I have a failed Title V at my home at 150 Skyway. We built it and installed it in 1992. After it failed, I spoke with Dr. Duncanson about our connection to sewer. We actually have sewer right under our road, and the pump chamber is finished, and I may be using the wrong term, so forgive me if I am, at the end of the road. And as I understand, they're waiting just for the state sign off. So when they say it's imminent, we could be able to connect to sewer by the end of the month. We actually, my husband and I had gone ahead and we designed, we had Clark Engineering design the connection to sewer. So we have the plans, and we have put it, since this happened, 2 weeks ago, we put it out to bid. And so we will have the ability, or this house will have the ability to hook up to sewer hopefully in the next 60 days, maybe longer. I'm not really sure on the time frame of the companies who do that work. But so I'm seeking a request for a variance of the Board of Health Real Estate Inspection Regulation to transfer our house. And also, just to backtrack a little bit, the day that it failed, we had Bob, our company, come and pump our leach pit and our septic tank. So we are actually living in the house, and the system is operational again for now.
For now, right,
Yeah, for now, yeah.
right. Okay, so the board has we understand the
Thank you.
situation, thank you. So the board is the board willing to recommend a 6-month extension with the understanding that the tank will be pumped as needed to prevent any failure, active failure of the system, which would be evidenced as discharging to the surface of the yard?
I have one question for Judy. So the road's been sewered, and then they said they're waiting for approval or an invitation to hook up. I mean, how long does that usually take? Is that? what
I
that's going to be?
believe it has something to do with accepting the sewer system and the as-built from the engineer and DEP. They were waiting, the sewer's been in the roads, I think, for several years already. They've been completing the pump station at the end of the road.
Okay.
So according to Bob, it could be any day now that we're going to get that
So
approval.
Bob has said that it is going to be in
Imminent.
this 1 to 2 month timeframe.
Yes.
Okay.
And the applicant, you said you have your paperwork filed for the connection?
Yes, so the site plan work is complete by Clark Engineering. The application to hook up has been paid for and applied by Clark Engineering as well. We just are waiting to be invited.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward to me. And you have every interest in not having any more active failures, so you would be eager to pump if you needed to extend the amount of time until you're ready to connect.
We pumped it the same day. We called in an emergency truck and brought it in. That's how sort of thrown we were.
I know,
We
but-
didn't expect it, but we took care of it straight away
I
and
know.
we'll continue.
Yeah, but if your septic system's not working well, you won't have that much time because the septic tank will begin to fill up with water that you're generating, and you'd have to understand that you may have to pump, every 3 weeks or something. In other words, to keep that water from failing.
Our inspector estimated we bought ourselves with 2 people living here 3 months.
Okay,
But that is, nothing's in cement, as my mom would say. So I feel like, we could get it checked after a month or whatever you wish,
Right.
It's a very short-term thing.
all right.
Shane,
Yes,
obviously you're passing papers, you're selling this property. Are the buyers
Yes.
aware of this issue and that they're going to be responsible for pumping if something happens?
yes, so they're aware of the issue and we're closing, hopefully December 1st. And the lawyers haven't discussed this, but we are, willing to, escrow money to pump as needed until they can connect to the sewer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, can I get a motion from a board member?
I'll recommend that we approve a variance for a 6-month extension to continue using the failed system to be pumped as needed, and that the sewer in the street and the hookup should be within that time frame, hopefully within a couple of months.
Yes.
Okay,
Did I? Is that-
we have a second.
Second.
We have an Ed. And we have a second. Ron?
Normally, when the sewer goes by, they get a letter saying they have 1 year.
Right.
So now, are we going to give them the letter for 1 year, or?
No, because we have a failed system.
That's going to be corrected before
Yes.
it gets set up?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Are we set?
Yep.
We have a second. Anybody want to comment on this else before we vote? All in favor of the motion as made and approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion has approved. You have your 6-month extension with the understanding you need to pump if necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, item number 3. Show cause hearing for Pamela Bowden at 34 Woodpecker Valley Road. IA Technology.
Can you hear me on here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
IA Technology Operation and Maintenance Contract Violation. Okay. Judy sent us a copy of a letter that she sent out regarding the fact that this property had not engaged a maintenance contract. Where are we with this now, Judy?
So I sent the letter out originally, and then I contacted Pam Bowden, who's one of the owners, and she got back to me last week, and I sent her a list of contractors. She did get us a signed contract, which is what we were looking for. It's a 2-year contract for twice annual testing and inspection. So she has fulfilled the requirements as of this date. So Pam, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Nope, I apologize for the inconvenience, but I'm all set. I should be good to go.
All right. Sounds like it's been resolved. Do we have to vote on this, or
Okay.
just?
I think you can just close the hearing. It was a show cause hearing.
Okay. All right, I think the board is
Thank you,
satisfied.
guys.
Thank you. The board, we're satisfied that this has been addressed.
Okay, enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have to vote?
Bye-bye.
I don't think you have to vote.
Okay. All right, I think,
So a certified letter was sent a year ago?
You gotta use-
A certified letter was sent a year ago, and you never got any reply? Is that what happened?
I'd have to go, our enforcement letters are sent originally by Barnstable County. They usually reach out several times before they refer it to me. They did refer to me, and then I can't remember, I'd have to go back through, I don't think I got right on it, so, and then she referred it to me again, and I said, okay, let me go back into the file. I pulled the file and saw that it was, in violation, so I sent this letter out just a few weeks ago, actually, in October, and inviting them to a meeting, so.
All right, so the letter that was sent out in December of 2020 wasn't a certified letter?
The letter I sent a year ago was, you're in violation, you need to get a contractor, and then I never followed up with it. She did not follow up with it either. And
kind of
then,
fell through the cracks for a while.
so then yeah, it was a lot going on this year. Then when the county again said, did you ever hear from her? We still haven't got a contract, then I picked it up again and got on it and invited her to this meeting, which tends to get some action, so.
Okay.
Just point of, when these contracts aren't enforced, that doesn't mean that the system isn't working. I mean,
Exactly.
what kind of you have to add chemicals to these things, or do
You have to monitor them.
just monitor?
You have to take a sample, an effluent, send it to a lab, make sure it's performing as it should be, as it was designed to.
Right. And they check blowers, they check filters, make sure
They don't have to
make sure the
replace
alarms are working.
On a regular basis, unless something
It's
is,
just an assurance that it is doing what it was designed to do, and it's working and protecting the groundwater quality.
good. Okay.
All right. Item number 4, a continuance of a show cause hearing regarding sewer connection order for Patrick O'Brien at 4 Youngs Road. We discussed this at our last meeting and agreed to carry it forward so that we could get more details, more information from the town engineer about the elevations and whether or not Mr. O'Brien would have to pump or wouldn't have to pump, depending on whether he connected to Barnhill or Youngs Road. So we got that report from Judy. And as I read it twice. Engineers write stuff a little differently sometimes. But am I correct then in assuming that it might be possible to do a gravity connection to Barn Hill Road, but it would involve some crossing of driveways and going through fence lines and that sort of thing. On the other hand, if we deferred the connection until a later date when Young's Road was sewered, it may have to be pumped at that point because it could be a low pressure line in the street in front of the house. So the homeowner would then have to install pumping equipment in any case. So it's as clear as mud.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. O'Brien, we see you on the screen. What are your feelings about the communication we got from the engineer?
I am not sure he got that.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. So I did not see the engineer's report. However, I did request, and they sent to me the sewer plan for Barn Hill Road and the tie-in card that they had for my property. And I'm not an engineer, but I did look at the elevation of the pipe at the septic system and the elevation of the stub. So long and short of it is the invert of the pipe at the septic system is 26 feet. The invert of the sewer that's been stubbed for the property is 27.84 feet. And that does not involve the 150 feet that it has to transverse to get to it. So simple math is roughly the invert is 5 feet too high for us to tie in gravity.
Right.
With a gravity feed.
So it looks, I'm sorry, I apologize for not sending you the email from, it actually went to Dr. Duncanson. It looks like it's not guaranteed that you'll be able to hook up by gravity on Young's Road either, depending on whether they do a pressure line on the road. So you may end up putting in a pump either way.
Can I ask a question then? So I'm assuming because the sewer in Barn Hill Road flows down the street, obviously, and then there's a pumping station at the bottom of the street. I mean, I believe there's a pumping station right at right where Harding's Beach Road branches off from. So wouldn't there be a similar thing for when they put the sewer into Young's Road? Because there's approximately 20 structures on Young's Road, so I imagine that they're going to want everyone to be on sewer at some point there.
But it's lower down. Those houses are lower down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then those houses, as I may misspeak here, but my impression is the engineer said because of the lay of the land along Young's Road and the homes that are down and up from you, they're not going to have a gravity feed either, or it's not enough to get up to the connection at Barn Hill. So there's going to have to be some pumping done to get their effluent up to Barn Hill as well. And if that's the same line you're connecting to, you would not be able to do a gravity feed either. I'm not sure I get it either, but that's the way I read it, Mr. O'Brien.
Again, I'm not an engineer, but I assume that, you know, that the houses in the neighborhood are gravity fed into a common sewer that's in the street, and then that flows down to, we'll call it a tank or something that has a pump, and then the town pumps that to wherever the town needs to pump it to.
No, I believe what they're talking about is that they're going to put a pressure line in the road, so everybody on the road would have to put in a pump and pump out to the pressure line, and that would go to a common collection area that would then possibly flow gravity. So it would be pumping, it would be a pressurized line from every house on Young's Road, and then pressurizing out to the gravity line.
They're not going to have
Okay, so,
two sewer lines, one taking the household effluent down the bottom of the hill, and then a pressure line bringing it back up. The houses would go right into the pressure line.
Right, that's, I believe, how it would
Can you
work.
explain to me what happened in 2014?
What,
They were given 1 year to connect to an existing sewer in 2014,
so this,
and that was not done?
right, he had spoken and verbally to the DPW director at the time, who told him he didn't have to connect, that he could connect on Youngs Road. That was never formalized, it was never formalized. So when we started sending out our renewal notices this past year, he contacted me, and I said, well, I don't know what you were told, but if you want an extension or approval to connect on Youngs Road, then you need to come to the Board of Health.
The
So,
Board of Health sent a letter ordering him to connect in 365 days, and somebody in the Public Works Department said, oh, don't worry about that, we'll give you 7 more years. That sounds a little ridiculous.
yeah, well, I don't know if that's what he said, but he said that he had spoken to them, and he thought was all set, but he wasn't. So, and we are in the process of catching all these, people that have not, that were ordered in 2014 and later, who were given a year. We probably have about 100 of them now that we've whittled it down to. So out of maybe 400 orders, so.
But now it looks like regardless, he's going to need a pump.
Well, we're not sure, yeah. It's a little unclear because apparently they have not completed the design on Youngs Road yet. So that's the best I can get out of what Jeff Gregg, the engineer, is saying.
But they are saying they could do it by gravity on Barn Hill.
Possibly, yeah. Even that, he's not really sure.
It's too steep. Young's Road drops right on, excuse me.
Microphone.
Young's Road.
Put your mic on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay,
Yeah, Young's Road just drops right off.
right.
When you get to the intersection, it just drops right off, and you're going down Meadowbrook Road there
Right.
to the other, and then it comes out and goes back up again before you get to the fish pier. So
Do we have any idea of when the town sewers would be run down Youngs
long
Road?
time from, that's,
It's not,
I haven't seen anything in
yeah,
writing.
no, I don't think we have anything designed yet. That's where the problem is with knowing exactly what
Yeah,
it's going to
that's
look like.
one of my questions, because Judy has said there are no immediate plans to extend the sewer to Youngs Road, so we don't know when it's going to be sewered. So it would be an indefinite extension. To me, it's a tough call. I mean, as I read the engineer's note here, and when he says it could, in quotes, get to Barn Hill by gravity, the engineer's main point is that it would be crossing the driveway and fence and yard. It would be an extensive amount of work to hook up to Barn Hill. But it appears that it could go there by gravity. On Youngs Road, he probably will need to pump. We don't know when there's going to get sewered in the future. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a difficult situation.
We've been waiting for
Bob may
7
have more, when he's here, might have
Yeah.
a little more perspective on it, but
We've been waiting for 7 years for an order to connect to Barn Hill, and now we're saying, well, let's wait, who knows how many more years, to possibly be able to connect to Youngs Road, even though that would require a pump, most likely. Sounds to me like it makes the most sense to just reaffirm the original order and say, you should go ahead right now, within X number of months, and connect your sewer to Barn Hill Road.
Judy, can I ask a question? Did he get a copy of this? We did?
No.
no.
That might
I
help
mean,
him a
we
lot.
could ask him to talk to an engineer to review the possibility of connecting by gravity on Barn Hill. And-
well, can I speak for a second?
Sure.
So originally, the contractor that was in the area that spoke with my father, who had the street plans and then looked at the plan for our septic system at the house, he said, there's no way that you can do it via gravity, hook up to what was stubbed for the house on Barn Hill Road. Now, my assumption was, and when I called originally after getting the hookup letter, it was Jeff Colby that I spoke to at Public Works, and then I followed that call up with a telephone call with Judy at Chatham Health, and I just assumed that, you know, when it was, it wasn't going to be a gravity hookup, that it would involve the hardship of installing a pumping system. And the argument from my point of view is, my house is a Barn Hill Road, or sorry, my house was not built on Barn Hill Road. It was built on Youngs Road. And that I should be grouped in with the Youngs Road people. You know, no one else on Youngs Road has been ordered to hook up to this town, to the system that they have right now. And I mean, I guess in theory, you could say, okay, you could send everybody an order and say, all right, you have to pump up to the pipe we have stubbed at the end of the road.
Good.
Yeah, this is Noble. I think Bob got into this corner lot business last
Yes.
time and how it works, and the owner's issue about the address, and I don't remember the whole bottom line of what Bob said, but
I thought he said that if, in the opinion of the people doing the sewer, the corner house could connect by gravity, they would proceed with that because it gets it done sooner. Right. And so, and then we have this report from the engineer saying, well, maybe it can be connected, but we still don't have it nailed. And then we have Mr. O'Brien's opinion that it's not even close, that there could be a gravity. So,
Yeah, if I can add, if the house was built on Barn Hill Road, fronted on Barn Hill Road, which would have been the very high side of our lot, then the house would have been built much higher, and there would have been no issue. And I'm just picturing it because if you can picture the big hill, there's a retaining wall right along where they built the sidewalk, that if we were up on top of that, it'd absolutely be no issue in getting a gravity feed. But since it was fronted on Youngs Road, and the lot drops down severely, the house is kind of slid down and kept down, and was kept lower.
Judy, I got a question. Does this really fall under the Board of Health? Wouldn't this be under the people that are designing the system, have the say on that? I mean, it seems like we got this letter here that is kind of confusing that we got.
Yeah, I mean.
Somebody should be able to say yes or no to them.
Right, and
We're not engineers.
what Jeff said, his last line was that I don't see a major issue if they wait. However, they should note that if the town elects to just run low pressure up the road, because that's what all the rest of the road needs, they would either have to connect where you gave them originally or pump. So he's taking a chance. It sounds like, you know, that there is a possibility of there being a gravity line on that road, but it may not be gravity, so he may or may not be able to connect by gravity in 5 years or so. So I don't think, I mean, it's not like we're losing anything by allowing him to wait and connect on Youngs Road. He's taking a chance. Possibly he'll be able to do it by gravity, possibly he won't. So, and it'll be a shorter run either way, probably to the stub, because it's closer to Youngs Road, his house, than it is to Barn Hill. So I don't think that there's a huge issue with allowing this to be revoked and, you know, connected on Youngs Road. But it's up to the board.
yeah, I think it's a tough call, but my thought there is that we're basically granting him an extension for the hookup order indefinitely.
We would basically be
there's no-
rescinding
you
his
know, it's-
hookup order. And
Excuse
we've
me?
done, we would basically be rescinding his hookup order, which we've done for other
I see.
people in similar circumstances.
Yeah.
Pending a new order at whenever the town decided to run sanitary lines down Young's Road.
Right.
And then he'd be
Right.
required to comply with that order, irrespective of whether he had to pump or not.
We should send this order that's out there, till we would rescind the order until there's an answer to what he wants to do, or what we can put on that street.
So basically, the precedent then would be, if you have a house that's on a corner lot, and there's a sewer on one road and not on the other, you don't have to connect. If you'd rather connect, if you'd rather wait 5 years or 10 years to connect to the side road. That's basically what we're saying, because there's a sewer stub right there by his house on Barn Hill Road. We're saying, well, eventually there's going to be a sewer on the other side street, so we'll just let you wait as long as it takes to connect to that one. And you could then, everybody who lives on a corner lot could say the same thing. I don't want to connect now, even though there is a stub right in my front yard. I'd rather connect to the other street.
We usually would only do that in these types of extenuating circumstances where you have, the need to pump versus the need to
Right, but you
to
just
run
said
gravity.
that Young's Road is probably going to need a pump.
Well, we don't, there's a possibility.
That's a dead end, and it circles out.
Right.
There's only about 12 houses there. And it's so low.
Right.
It's going to be
I wish we had a firm answer on whether there could be a gravity, because if this was a gravity connection opportunity to Barn Hill, I'd stay with the initial order. Make the homeowner connect. But if it's, right now, it's gray. I don't,
Right. The problem is that the engineers still don't know whether it's going to be a gravity situation or not. So
Well, if they don't know,
when they actually get out there and start doing the survey work and
the design
the
and.
design.
I mean, they're not sure, so we're putting it on to this fellow to make a decision that may affect them, will definitely affect them one way or the other.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
I
what I'm
mean, that's
saying. If
not-
we give him,
He deserves to get
if we
an answer from
rescind it,
somebody who knows.
he's taking a chance that it may work out good for him, but it might not necessarily improve the situation. We're not sure.
What is he going to lose by that?
By connecting,
By waiting to see what the,
what's he going to lose? I don't think he'll lose anything, really.
I mean,
Mr. O'Brien, how old's your house?
The house is 20 years old, sir.
And how-
It has and it's only a seasonal house.
Okay.
It's used basically 4 months of the year.
Okay.
My dad had the system pumped, I believe, 5 years ago, and the gentleman that he said he didn't even need it, but he said this thing will last for a lifetime with the low amount of usage that's on the property. And I know I know we're talking about engineering, and I'm in a field that I don't know very little about, but, the simple number of where my septic system is, where they would be tying, where they tie my pipe in and where the stub is, and according to what I've read up is that you need a 1/4 inch of pitch for a gravity feed. So that puts me solidly 5 feet below what was stubbed for the property. So it's not a question of inches. It doesn't even seem to be close. So, I mean, I'm a little confused. I'm not familiar with a low-pressure gravity system, or sorry, a low-pressure sewer system where I guess everybody has a pressurized pump pumping into the common sewer. But if that's the case, then that would be the case. But in the meanwhile, we have a perfectly functioning, what I would consider a relatively new, system. When we bought the house in 2001. We had a Title V inspection. Everything was great. Obviously it was a brand new system too. But, I mean, also, I mean, maybe that, what the engineer was maybe looking at was where they would have to run the pipe. I mean, they would have to literally run the pipe from the far corner of my lot, well, not from the far corner, but it would literally run right across the entire front of my property. We'd have to take up, you know, some shrubbery, it has to cross the driveway, we have to take up the fence, and that's if, you know, I mean, I guess that's that you have to do it if it was a gravity feed, but it wouldn't be a gravity feed. It would also involve
Right.
putting in a pumping station, you know, on our property.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board on this? Do we want to make a motion to rescind the earlier order? Or do we want to defer this for a more definitive engineering plan?
I'm in favor of deferring it to a subject product,
To what?
because it's very confusing.
I know.
I've go there a lot. I used to be a great friend of a couple of people there, and it's changed, and so now there's different things happening, and it's just, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd take, let's take a look at this. Through an engineer's perspective. Because you got the street on the corner, and then you got the avenue going down
Yeah.
to.
It's clear it'd have to be pumped all the way back up to Barn Hill. I think that's pretty clear.
Okay.
So I think that's the key thing. If the engineers tell us that the Youngs Road is going downhill, it has to be a pressurized pipe coming
Has to
up. They're
come
not
back.
going to have two pipes, one taking sewage down to the bottom of the hill and another pipe bringing it back up. If it's going to be one, that would require a pump in his house. Then he needs a pump to go to either place.
Yep.
And then it makes sense then that he should just connect.
Yeah, but it's,
You know, to say, well,
But
let's
then
give
the
him another
hardship-
10 years.
but the hardship of connecting to Barn Hill
Right.
would be pretty significant, cutting across all of your property and through those areas. And in a mitigating way, if the existing septic system is used seasonally, you know, there's not a lot of environmental,
Okay, so then we're saying then the precedent is if you live on a corner, you can wait until either street gets a sewer. If it's going to be
Well, I
15
would-
years for the
Ed, I
third
would-
street,
I
and you'd
would
rather
argue-
have it go there than you
I would,
can.
I would argue that in this case, I'm assuming you don't have a gravity feed.
Right.
Well, neither one of these is going to have a
Which
gravity
way?
feed. So it's connecting to this one
It's
or
going
connecting to
on
that.
with the Barn Hill connection.
That you don't.
You don't.
Yeah, but we don't really know that ourselves, and we don't have any kind of engineering information. We have kind of hearsay information.
Yeah.
I don't know myself of my own knowledge
It's on the
that,
downside of the
but it
stream.
sounds like the Youngs Hill will be a pump, almost for sure. We don't know that, but I'd ask Judy, is there a way to get more engineering input and more of an engineering opinion into this? John's argument is sort of separate from that.
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean,
but-
we definitely could. I think
What would that be?
that Jeff did this quickly to answer Bob's question before he went on vacation and before he knew we had this hearing. We could, you know, kick this can down the road a little bit further and
Would
get
Bob-
a
would Bob-
little bit more detailed information from our engineer, if that would make you more comfortable.
And would Bob be a help there?
Would Bob? Yeah, I mean, I think,
Yeah,
I mean, Bob's on vacation, but he'll be back next week.
that's a
and-
continuance, which we've already continued one, so, we're not excited about it.
Yeah, I don't
feel like I have enough information to really know for sure. I
There's no,
understand
there's
John's
no
argument,
big
though.
issue
That's a
about
reason.
continuing it. I mean, it's been like this for a while, and,
Yeah, I mean, 2014.
right.
And the
and-
system works. There's not a problem with the system.
That's correct.
The existing
Right.
system.
And the continuous is not an expense, it's a time thing for the owner.
I think that's fine. I think we could continue it to either our next meeting, and if we don't, if we don't have enough information then we'll continue it again. I mean, it just, to see if we can
I
get,
ask-
if we could get Mr. O'Brien some good information, then he would be able to make a decision that is, more informed as well. So,
Okay, is it, my question was, it was my assumption that the hardship was the pumping of, having a pumping system, as opposed to a gravity system. So, I mean, there is a hardship also of cutting across the whole property, but if they're in, I mean, I can see from the Barn Hill Road plan that there is definitely there's a sewer stub in Young's Road, because it actually puts the note right on my property, and on that plan, that there's a gravity stud for future connection, invert of 24 feet, 24.23 feet
Right.
in Young's Road. So there's definitely gonna be a sewer in Young's Road. So once there's a sewer in Young's Road, I'm gonna have about 20 feet 15 to 20 feet of distance to tie into that sewer, be it gravity or be it by pressure, as opposed to running it 150 to 160 feet across the entire frontage of my property.
right.
Which is a hardship. So there's two levels of hardship here. One is going the long distance, ripping up the whole front yard, driveway, and fence, and the other one is the pumping system. So in my point of view is, if you guys consider me tearing up the whole front yard to run a sewer line across it, if that's considered a hardship, then why shouldn't I be allowed to wait, as all my other neighbors will, to tie into the sewer that will be put into Young's Road when it's available?
That's a long way.
Well, the difference is, Patrick, that you front also Barn Hill Road, and a stub was put for your property to connect there. That's the difference. Now, this case has a lot of arguments on both sides, all of which are credible. And so the board, I see now that the choice for this board right now is A, defer it until we get more definitive information on whether the Barn Hill connection could be gravity fed or not, or B, to withdraw the connection order and have Mr. O'Brien's property be tied in at the same time that the Young's Road properties are connected.
I understand the owner's argument, but I think we may have readily available extra information from the engineers that'll help us be clear about this. And and I don't think it's a great hardship to defer this another short time till we get some more information. So I'd be in favor of deferring it and trying to get some more engineering information.
I'd second that. I think we,
I'm not saying I don't.
we
agree
need
with
to
this
get an
argument. I just
engineer
think
here.
If the information is there, we should.
Yeah, and we need someone who can sit there and explain it to us.
Okay. So I'm seeing a majority of the Board of Health members right now feeling most comfortable in moving ahead with this by deferring a decision until we can get a more definitive engineering report on the nature of the connection to Barn Hill, for real.
Correct.
Okay?
I'll make that as a motion.
Okay.
And I'll second it.
We have a second from Carol. Anybody else want to comment on this before we vote? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. O'Brien, we're sorry, but we're going to carry this forward for a little bit more until such time that we can get the additional information we're looking for. And Judy will coordinate with you, right, Judy? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, item 5, an update and a discussion regarding the John McGrath property at 32 Mill Hill Road. Judy, what updates can you share with us at this time?
Well, I was hoping to have a discussion with town council today, and we did not connect, but we are still working with him. Bob met out at the site with the, one of the police officers, walked the property. Mr. McGrath was actually there, and he showed him the trailers that were of concern that had materials on them. The PD was going to run the plates and make sure these trailers could be moved legally and that they were all registered. We were also waiting for a cost estimate from DPW to have the town start removing property,
Debris.
removing debris from the property. And we have not got the letter, the draft letter yet from town council. He did confirm, however, that if we use the, we can use the nuisance rule, which we discussed, and then there's also the blocking the roadway bylaw, that there isn't a lot of extra strength in that, except that we can, we can move the materials off of it. But we don't really have a real follow-up legally with that way of going through with it. But we are moving forward with that, and again, we are waiting for the letter, the draft letter from the town council.
And we're waiting for an estimate
And
from
we're
the
waiting for an estimate. So
DPW.
that's basically where we are. We're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern right now until we get all those pieces together and we can move forward with cleaning up the property. I did drive by there today. It appears to removed at least 2 trailers full of material that were parked there. Looks like there's 2 more. He was outside moving stuff around by himself. I don't know what exactly was going on. It looked slightly better, but it's still quite
When were you there? What day were you there?
today.
Oh, today, because the old car's still there, right? The old Audi TT, the black
The Audi.
car.
I didn't notice the car.
That was there, we went by there on Thursday, I think. and
Okay, I did
it was
not
still
notice the
there.
car. I
Okay.
was looking at the trailers to see what he moved.
Judy, I have a question. Has Bob heard definitely from the town that they are going to pay for this?
It's my understanding that we're moving forward with the
It's a de-
town.
it's a
Yeah, we're
definite,
waiting for
I mean-
the cost estimates from DPW.
They're going to do it at their expense and whatever, transfer
And then
whatever they have to.
we'll lean that expense, if at all possible,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
I mean, I don't want to go through all this and then the town says, well, we can't do it. We don't have the money to do it. I mean,
I think there's a commitment, commitment
Been a
there.
commitment?
that-
It's my
that-
understanding that there's a
Right.
commitment from the
thank you.
town to move forward
you.
with this.
Yeah, that's my question, what Ron said. Do we have a definite commitment from the town, whoever that person is, that they are going to proceed with the cleanup of the roadway portion of this, using current town funds, and that we're not going to have to go through a town meeting, or that there'll be some other funding or blowback? They're committed to do it, so once it is surveyed, we get
It
the
has
legal
been
letter.
surveyed.
and
It's been
maybe-
surveyed,
Maybe
right.
find out if there's notice, but then we would proceed, the town would proceed directly, presumably DPW, to
Right.
go ahead and clean up the roadway portion, which
Right.
will go a long way to making it safe for the people using the road.
Right.
And for Nickerson's, who's really worried about their trucks going up and down there.
Right, and that's where we're at right
So
now.
that-
As far as I understand, we are moving
Because I had
forward
used
with
the
the.
term ASAP, but as possible, it leaves a lot of leeway. But we have got feedback from the town that they're,
I mean, I'm speaking from what I've discussions with Bob, is that his discussions with the town manager is that, we're waiting for the cost estimates, and we are going to move forward.
there was
with it.
no, we may have to go to a town warrant.
No,
It's-
that's not part of the
That's not
discussion
come up
that
yet.
I've-
DPW is going to do it, no, okay.
Right.
That's a big help, right there.
My understanding was Bob said DPW would clean up, they were responsible for cleaning up the road
Right.
area.
Everything in the road
And then
layout.
in the spring at town meeting,
Phase 2,
phase 2 is to raise the money to. do
Correct.
go down the hill,
Right.
right.
And
And
I
that
believe-
that's what we could attach the lien for, but that the town cleaning up the road area cannot be attached as a lien.
I don't think that's
That is an
true.
expense the town has to incur.
If-
Carol,
if
that's
somebody-
not been clear to me
Right.
yet, but you could be right, you could be wrong on that. I'm not
I
sure.
think you're correct,
The town would move ahead,
Yes,
clear up
right.
roadway.
irrespective of the cost recovery
There
question.
was something that the attorney said to the effect that if a person leaves trash in the roadway in front of their house and will not remove it, the town can remove it and charge them the cost of removal.
Okay.
You can't just leave cars in the road in front of your house. If the town comes and tows, if you leave a functional car there and the town tows it away, you have to pay the towing charge plus a fine.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If you leave junk in front of your house on the roadway, the town can remove it and bill you for that.
And then just one other clarification, Judy. So he had multiple, commercial utility type trailers. A couple of them had plates. One looked like it had a flat tire and a bad fender or something, so who knows if it's functional. But is the lawyer working on the issue of him just moving around these large utility trailers, which also block the road safely for these big trucks going back and forth? Is that a legal issue he's working on, whether the town can force that, or is there an answer to that part of it,
I mean, everything in the roadway needs to be cleared, so if,
including a trailer,
including the trailers, right.
even if it's functional?
We raised.
That's our understanding.
We
That was
discussed with
that was
him.
what we-
If it's blocking, yeah, okay.
Is there not a town ordinance that you can't leave vehicles in front of your house overnight on town property? If you have a pullout, you can pull your, but my belief is you're not allowed to leave
I don't know.
vehicles in the town road.
I don't know.
But that would be, the police department would know that, then they're involved.
Right, that's what the town PD is looking at, the issue of the trailers and whether they're legal trailers
They
and
would
all of
know.
that, so. And I haven't gotten any follow-up information on that, so,
That would be the police concern,
Right.
Our concern is that they get them off there.
right.
So I think we stay tuned. We wait for more definitive updates in the next meeting or two,
Next meeting, yeah.
next meeting, and Bob will be back, correct?
Yep.
We'll get a bit more detail from Bob, and we just hope and expect that progress will continue to occur. Any other questions or comments on that? Yes.
Hi, Carol Gordon, of course, from South Chatham. And just wondering if we can get a definitive date from DPW as to when they expect to come out and clean up Mill Hill Road. I mean, I would think that by now it's been surveyed and nothing has changed. If anything, there's more. And I would think that DPW, if they have it on their calendar, we should be able to know exactly when they're going to be coming out, and then the other pieces can fall together.
As soon as we know, we'll put it out there. I can't give a date because I don't, I haven't got that information from DPW.
Now, is that Mr. Temple?
Yes.
DPW?
Yes.
Okay. So we could contact him and ask him when the date is?
He has to be notified by letter.
We're going to notify the
Yeah.
owner first that we're going to come in and clear the property.
That's
And
got
then
a
how
pre,
many day, what's the time period after that? When he receives the letter? I mean, he's gotten so many
Our town
letters that he's
council said,
ignored.
we could give him 24 hours and then we can just
Oh,
go in and
24
clean it up.
hours? Okay.
So,
I mean, he's had
Okay.
there's a
the
pers-
multiple 21-day notices, so
He's
we're
had
beyond
no-
that now.
yeah,
We're-
he's
Oh,
had
right. He's
multiple
gotten many
notices.
notices that he's, that this is happening,
he's
so.
very aware that this is going on. He did meet them out there when they were out and
Right,
And
okay.
Judy, you're not aware that the DPW has any objection, to doing the job of
no, I was out there with Tom Temple. We reviewed
was-
all where the stakes were and what all the property,
And
all
he'd be
the
using current
debris
trucks and
is.
resources.
so he understood the scope of what
He
was being.
totally understood the
Okay.
scope, yes. And then I think Bob sent you all the map showing the lines with the,
That was a fascinating map.
right.
So did they survey the back part there? It looked like they surveyed the whole lot.
I saw the lines go to the back.
Well, there was
so-
one stake going down a side.
Anyway, that's a side.
Most of the stakes were across the
Put one
front,
stake in the side,
right.
closest.
So as soon as we, get the we send the letter, we get the go-ahead from DPW and town council, we'll do it. They'll go ahead and do it. I just can't give you a date yet.
Okay, I appreciate that you're going forward with this.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move to item 6, an update and a discussion regarding Chatham water quality. Do we have an update? Or are we deferring to Bob next time, or?
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell is you know that the funding was approved at town meeting and by vote. So the funding has been approved to move forward with the new wells, 10 and 11. And that's where we're at with that, and we're just moving forward with the treatment and for the other wells that they're going to start. They'll start in the spring with the temporary treatment, and then they'll move to build the treatment facility for the rest of the wells. I can't give you too much more than that
Okay.
at this point.
Bob gave us a pretty thorough summary at the last meeting. I think that's
And nothing much has changed since.
right since then. Item 7, update and a discussion regarding COVID. Do we have any?
I can give you a little update on that. Can find my notes first.
We got an email today about Broadreach, about a case at Liberty
There was a
Commons.
case, yes, I sent you that. There was an employee at Broadreach who tested positive, and they have been following all the proper protocols and been in touch with DPH. As
As I read that update, they did not find any additional positives.
No.
So far, right?
And they're very communicative with us whenever anything, they will keep in touch and let us know if anything else comes up. As of today, Chatham has a total 422 cases. That's from January 1st, 2020. And our incidence rate is 8.6, and our positivity rate is 3.05. So putting that into perspective, we have gone up, our positivity rate has gone up in the last 3 weeks. In October 28th, it was 1.25. Last week it was 2.09, and now it's 3.05. That's the positivity rate. Our incidence rate has gone up slightly. It was at 6.1, now it's at 8.6. So we are seeing a little bit of an upward trend, which is not surprising, seeing as people are being much more inside, and we also have a lot of school testing. Just from what I'm seeing is that we're getting a lot of testing in the schools, and we're finding asymptomatic school-age kids that are positive, and then testing families, and most of it seems like it's asymptomatic from what I'm seeing. Family members testing positive as well. To date this month, we've had 16 cases. 11 were vaccinated, 5 were either not vaccinated or unknown at this point. As opposed to last month, up in a similar time period, we had 26 cases. So we're a little bit slower, it seems. There's a couple of things going on that I'm planning. I'm a pediatric clinic at the Chatham Elementary School. We're going to offer with the VNA pediatric shots for those kids that are 5 to 12 that have just been approved. We're also planning to go back out and do the booster shots for our homebound, and that's with Outer Cape Health and the homebound, and also Chatham Housing Authority. And those are both with Chatham Health, and our fire department will be giving those shots. So that's about what I have.
Any
Any
questions or comments from board members?
I just looked at the Massachusetts numbers, and the 7-day average is just rock stable, 1,700 cases a day. Been like
Steady.
that for the last 2 months. It's just
Yep.
very
Yeah,
steady.
The Cape is a little higher than the state average, but
There's been a lot of discussion about a winter spike in cases, but nobody seems to know for sure whether it's going to come to be or not. So,
I can tell you that we had a discussion with last week's DPH meeting with the state's epidemiologists, and they are going to most likely in January stop contact tracing
Really?
completely. Except, well, not completely, except for in congregate settings and schools. And then if there's any like outbreaks or clusters that they see that are of interest. I think their feeling is that right now what we're seeing is a community spread and an endemic situation where the COVID is in the community. We have a large percentage of people vaccinated. Our hospitals aren't being inundated. It's just become a situation where it's here and there isn't a lot to be learned. Or it doesn't, I don't know if maybe it doesn't help that much to do all the contact tracing that we're currently doing. So they are moving towards that ending probably in January or February.
so does that mean that we could be seeing the early stages of moving from a pandemic to an endemic
Yes.
situation where it's going to settle down but not go away?
I believe that's what's happening. And that's kind of where we are at this point.
So this is the state
Yes, Department of Public Health.
is going to, or is proposing, or they're going to stop contact tracing in January, so that's a month
That's what
and
they're
a
leaning
half.
towards.
So that means school kids in the school and everything, all these.
No, they're going to still probably be doing it in the schools, the
Oh.
public school setting, and then the congregate housing settings, nursing homes,
Okay.
prisons, any place where you have a lot of people living
All right, well, that's
in
a big
close proximity. They'll still be following those cases. It's kind of similar to what they do with other communicable diseases. They're just adding this to the list of communicable diseases that we live with every day. And this will allow them actually to get back to, tracing some of the other stuff that has kind of been left by the wayside as well. But they started rolling that information out to us last week at our meeting. And that's my understanding.
I do know at the high school, they're doing pool testing, where I think half of the parents have signed off to allow their kids to be part of weekly pool testing. So that will be where they test a whole bunch of kids and then run one analysis on that pool. And if it's negative, then they're all negative. But they seem to be doing a lot of testing when they need to and want to.
And if it's positive, then they test them
If
individually.
it's positive, they got to go back,
Right.
and then they have to do
And
individual.
then beyond that is doing septic testing, where they
Wow.
test the effluent in the
wastewater
septic
for,
system coming out of the school, and if it's positive, then they because that's where they're finding the COVID in the septic effluent.
Have you heard of anything, of any place that's doing that?
Oh, yeah, no, they're definitely doing that. Yeah. No, not in schools, but like in communities. They're measuring to get an idea of the amount of
community.
COVID in the community.
Right.
They're going to the sewage treatment plant and
Doing a grab
testing.
sample.
Yeah, no, they've been doing that
And
since day
testing.
one.
They have been.
Yeah,
sewage.
not in Chatham because our whole town's not sewered, so it didn't.
But it sounds like where we are right now is the vaccine, we have a high proportion of adults vaccinated. A high proportion of the people who are most at risk in adult group are triple vaccinated and are really very safe. And the people who are at risk are the kids that haven't yet been vaccinated. And once we're able to get the kids vaccinated,
Right.
then I think we can pretty much worry a lot less about transmission and about masks and things like that, because then, the high-risk population will have been pretty much all vaccinated. Right now, the problem is if you've got somebody who hasn't had a booster and they pick up COVID at Liberty Commons and go home and play with their kids, then the kids could get very sick. And that's what's the most worrisome thing right now, because the people who haven't gotten the third vaccine can get asymptomatic infection and transmit.
Right, and we're seeing quite a bit of that. But
They can get symptomatic too, I have a friend.
they can, yep.
Button.
in Chatham,
They can get symptomatic,
husband and
yes.
wife, that
Yep.
are
No, we-
currently quarantined.
Yep.
And she's very symptomatic, and they both were vaccinated.
Right. Well, people who are older people who got vaccinated 10 months ago are at risk. You know, their immunity has really dropped off. They're probably not going to go in the ICU and die, but they can get very sick.
Right.
Yeah, if they get the booster, then that really does help. And in Israel, they were pretty much able to get rid of all the breakthrough infections by giving the third shot to the whole population.
Well, all right,
That's where we're at.
thank you. We have 2 minutes to approve, so let's tend to that.
Oh, we have.
I'm sorry, yes.
I won't keep you long. I know it's been a long night. My name is Leslie Gillis. I'm obviously a resident of Chatham. I'm also president of the Chatham Women's Club. And I'm curious as to know why, and I know you're doing your very best to keep us all healthy, but Chatham Women's Club, we've had 2 meetings so far at the community center. We had one in September. I wish some of you could have seen 78 women dancing without a mask on. No one got sick. They had a wonderful day. We were together again last month. We had 73 women attending. Unfortunately, we were all wearing a mask that day. It wasn't as good a meeting as I had hoped. We have another meeting coming up this week. I guarantee you that all my members have been vaccinated, and probably most of them have had their booster shot. What I'm curious about is when I walked in here tonight, at the front door, you have a sign that says, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. So I'm wondering, why am I standing here wearing a mask? And why are the women at Women's Club still have to wear a mask? And if it's that bad, then why haven't you issued a mandate for every restaurant and shop on Main Street?
The Board of Health put into effect a mask mandate for town buildings, town meeting, town gatherings such as this and meetings. I think the reason was that a lot of staff people were concerned that having these meetings in person with people that may or may not be vaccinated was a little bit more of a risk than everyone was comfortable with. And not just town staff, but also some of the board members on different boards. And the board discussed it, and with our positivity or incident rate being slightly higher than the state average, we just feel that we weren't out of the woods yet with this. So we've continued with this mask mandate for these meetings in town buildings.
So a town meeting, does that include a men's club meeting or women's club? Is that a town meeting?
In town buildings, yes. Gatherings of 4.
There are 2 of them hanging there that both say that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask.
Well, that's for people coming in to do business at the counter. It's for meetings of 4 or more people, gatherings.
So you're
formal.
not willing to suppose I say to the women, you have to show proof of vaccination so that if everyone attending our meeting is vaccinated, those that obviously who want to wear a mask can wear a mask. If they're eating, can they take a mask off?
Yes.
So COVID knows when I'm eating and COVID knows when I'm not eating. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I can go to any restaurant in town where it's packed. There's no restrictions anymore at the town restaurants. I don't have a mask on when I get up to go to the bathroom. No one's got a mask on. The waiters don't even have masks on. But you're telling these, and I'm speaking for my membership, how difficult it's making it. And if people are afraid and don't want to, put themselves at risk, they don't have to come. But for those individuals who are willing to take a risk, and life is a risk. I get up every day, it's a risk. I get in my car, it's a risk. If I'm willing to take a risk and be at a meeting with perhaps 30, 40 other women, with the windows wide open in that room, we all have to sit around with this mask on. We were told if we got vaccinated, we didn't have to do it. And I'm curious, is every other town on the Cape doing this?
There's many other towns on the Cape that still require masks in town buildings, yes.
And when you talk about the number of cases, do you happen to know if they're people in schools and community settings or just the general population? I believe there were 17 cases in the last 6 weeks, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
There
17
were
cases.
16
Who were those
cases.
17?
No, there were
Who were those
16
17
cases in the
people?
past 2 weeks
Pardon me?
in Chatham. 16 cases in the past 2 weeks.
Can you
in-
possibly give me an age description? of-
Anywhere from 5 to 70.
Are they individuals, oh, so it's mostly children, right?
No, they range, there's some children, there's some 30s, 40s. I don't have the information, but I did look at it all today, and.
And how many of those were hospitalized?
I don't know, I don't think
And
very
how many,
many of
if
them.
anyone passed away?
Not, as far as I know, none.
No.
One passed away.
In the past 2 years, yes, year and a half.
Okay, so I'm talking about the last, since, the data shows since October the 7th, I believe, October the 14th. I don't believe there's anyone in Chatham has died from COVID, correct?
Not that I know of.
So can you give me a point at which I can expect, what do the data have to be that you're willing to drop this mandate for the community center? Do you have that information?
We're monitoring which way the cases are going. It's on our radar at some point to revisit that policy, and once we arrive at the board level that we're comfortable withdrawing it, we will do so. I can't tell you that this number has to be blank and that number has to be blank, but we are mindful of the fact that we need to continually revisit this, and when the time comes that we're comfortable, we will withdraw it.
And you are aware that today at Hopkinton High School, which has about a 90% vaccination rate, they've been on a trial basis where the kids can choose, and they're the most vulnerable, where they're the ones that are catching it now. They can choose whether to wear a mask or not. So you're not comfortable, if I want to make sure I understand this correctly, you're not comfortable with letting people decide for themselves whether or not, even though if they've been vaccinated, they've got their booster, whether or not to wear a mask in a room with 20, 30 other people. Is that right? You're not comfortable saying that?
I don't think any of the public health policies allow people to decide whether they want to. It's not just whether they are comfortable themselves. What about people who are with them? That's the whole underlying aspect of this.
Well, Hyannis...
You may have somebody that says, I'm vaccinated, I'm comfortable going in, but they could be incubating something right there. And they could be exposing people later that day unknowingly. So it's not just about whether you feel that you are protected and whether you're willing to risk exposing yourself to somebody else. It goes the other way as well.
I volunteer 2 days a week at the thrift shop in Hyannis, and it's owned by Cape Cod Hospital. And the policy there is if any volunteer has been vaccinated, we don't have to wear a mask. That's the hospital's policy. It just strikes me that's kind of different that this is their building. We run the shop for them to raise money for the hospital, and yet those of us that are vaccinated, and you have to be vaccinated to volunteer there, we don't have to wear a mask. But when I come back into Chatham and I go over to the community center, I've got to throw it on.
I think at the public schools, unless 80% of the class of the students are vaccinated, all the kids are required to wear masks.
But I can guarantee you that 100% of these ladies are vaccinated, 100% of them.
The problem is that recently a high proportion of the infections are breakthrough infections in vaccinated people. And those vaccinated people can transmit the disease to other vaccinated people and to unvaccinated people who could get very sick. So that, the fact that you've had a vaccine doesn't completely protect you
Isn't that
from
true of
getting the
flu?
disease. And even though you may not get sick and die, you can transmit the virus. You have just as much virus in your nose and mouth as someone who hasn't been vaccinated who gets infected. And you can take it home and spread it to your children and to other unvaccinated people who could get very sick. That's the concern. Recently, a very high proportion of the COVID-positive individuals are vaccinated. They're not sick and dying, but they're transmitting disease. That's the concern.
I guarantee it is a concern. Do I believe that it's necessary?
Well, clearly you don't.
I
but-
don't.
But, you know, we disagree right at this point, and we're watching these numbers closely. It's getting cold. It's getting to the period where people are coming back indoors. The last several years, and in the fall and winter, the numbers have gone way up. And that's, if by a month from now, the numbers in Massachusetts are way down, and in Chatham, then that may be time to reconsider all of this.
So for the last 3 weeks, I think they come out on Thursdays, it's been 5 cases, and last Thursday was
In
7 cases.
Massachusetts, it's 1,700 cases a day.
I know, but we're
every
in-
day for the last month and a half.
That's right, but that's not Chatham. I'm
Oh.
talking about Chatham Community Center, and who are the 40 to 80
Right.
people that
And-
show up at
and
Chatham
next
Community
week,
Center?
thousands of people are coming to Chatham for Thanksgiving from all over New England. These
Wow.
are not Chatham people. And that's the other issue. When people come for family get-togethers, that tends to initiate COVID cases.
So let me make sure I'm correct. If they're eating, they can take off their mask, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
eating and
can't-
sitting, I think the rule is that's the guideline it follows what the restaurants did downtown. I would say that the issue you bring up, the state guideline is if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated indoors, the guideline is wear a mask. So the board added making it mandatory to wear a mask in town buildings, and that in large part came from Dr. Duncanson, his feedback from other boards and committees and employees. And we give a lot of deference to his feelings. Now, we have discussed just what you're talking about week after week. There hasn't been a consensus yet, but I will say this is something that comes up at every meeting. And to my point of view, it's not, it's not if, it's when we're going to rescind that order and bring it back. But we have discussed that, just the point you're talking about.
Do you vote on it every time you meet and discuss it? Do you vote on?
We don't vote. We talk about it.
But you don't take a vote on? So
No,
there could be
there's-
some of you that
There's
think the
no
mandate.
need to vote.
I'll say one other thing. Sometimes it's difficult to tell if everybody's vaccinated.
I'm not sure what I mean by what
Well, when you
mean.
say you're positive everybody in your club is vaccinated, sometimes it's hard to tell,
I
actually.
was in California last month, and every restaurant I went to, I had to show my vaccination card, which I was fine with. I thought that was fine. And why aren't we doing that here? I don't know. A lot of things I don't understand the way we do things here. But if people are willing to show a card to say that they were vaccinated, would that make any difference?
Not under the current
Okay.
mask order, no.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate all the work you do to keep Chatham safe. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 sets of minutes we've got to approve. Let's do the executive session first for November 1st, 2021. Any edits or comments or corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve those executive session minutes?
Motion to approve.
We have Ed, a motion. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Carol, seconded. All in favor of accepting the executive session minutes of November 1st, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. We have a November 1st regular meeting minutes also. Any edits or corrections or comments on those? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept those minutes as presented?
Motion to approve, Noble?
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. All in favor of approving the minutes of November 1st, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries. Unless somebody has something urgent to raise as a last-minute issue, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Noble?
Second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for Judy and Diane.
Ba-da-ba-ba